Well, it's finally happened. Someone has decided to take the Cayman Islands and especially the British Virgin Islands to task on all their tax dodging and tax evasions. Why, yes, as you can see from the title of the video, it was the MEPs. Because here's the thing: as long as we have been in, the European Parliament, we have had a say and even a veto over European rules and regulations. Even though Brexiteers seem to think that we have or had absolutely no power to do these things. And one of the things that, especially after the 2008 financial crash, one of the things that especially the people in Europe recognised was the fact that a lot of companies have been using tax havens to funnel millions of pounds of tax that they owe to various governments around the world. And not just that, one of the things that is fascinating and is so good about the EU is that because it is so big, it can take on big multinational companies, whereas Britain will just not be able to. Amazon, massive company, will now be able to dodge paying so much tax because it can just funnel money here and out and everywhere. And we won't be able to do a thing about it, even if we decide to introduce laws. There will be some way for them to get around it. But because the EU was so big and so powerful as an organisation, it could force things like Google, Amazon, all these big multinationals to actually pay their fair share of tax. The problem is, of course, was that when these rules came into place, all the way back in 2012, in fact, after those rules were announced and came into place, it's not surprising that the word Brexit first came into being. So, and finally, these places have been blacklisted, which, good. Quite frankly, a long time coming. There should be now anyway, but of course our government, especially the Tory government, won't do anything about these tax dodging places. Of course not. I mean, just look how many companies are listed in the Isle of Man. It's bizarre, but there you go. And we're not talking small one-man companies. We're talking big multinational companies with their headquarters listed as being in the Isle of Man for tax reasons. So before we get into the article today, please do remember to hit that like and share button, and of course down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link, and thank you very much to the people who do support me that way. So this comes from The Guardian, and of course, as you can see, MPs vote to add Channel Islands and British Virgin Islands to tax haven blacklist. The European Parliament is pushing for UK overseas territories, including the British Virgin Islands, Guernsey, and Jersey, to be added to an EU tax havens, shall we say, blacklist after the conclusion of the Brexit deal, sending a signal that tougher action on tax avoidance was required in response to the coronavirus pandemic. MEPs voted overwhelmingly in favour of adding more nations and territories to the list of non-cooperative jurisdictions. The resolution earlier passed this week by a vote of 587 to 50, including members calling for the automatic inclusion of the blacklist of countries which use a 0% tax regime. Along with these are UK overseas territories viewed by transparency campaigners as havens for tax avoidance. And we've seen numerous calls for these over the year. Like I say, this is what's so damning about austerity. MPs like Theresa May and whatnot, and Conservatives still say there's no such thing as a magic money tree, except there is. It's just hidden all away on these islands. And if we were to actually tax people properly in this country and, really take a pair of scissors to our tax code and maybe even just burn the book completely and just start afresh from new, we might be able to actually tax people especially big companies and the millionaires and billionaires in this country, more properly and appropriately, so that they now actually pay their fair share of tax, and so that money can then go to benefiting this country. That can actually go to the NHS. I've said it before. In fact, there was a really good article a couple of weeks ago. I think it was in the Guardian, and they were saying that Rishi Sunak's way out of the coronavirus crisis is to get a hold of the magic money tree, because we've said it for years. Austerity was not an actual choice; it was a political choice. Other countries who did austerity did not go as hardcore as we did. In fact, many countries did austerity, but then leveled it back. So it was this much one year, but then it leveled back. We never leveled back. It was, this is austerity, this is how hardcore we're going to go, and we're not just going to level back, we're going to go even deeper into it. And that has what really was led to really the past 10 years of Tory rule going hardcore on Tory austerity. It was Tory austerity that led people being so disheartened and being, seeing their services and places and just things just disappear. As we said one time when we covered Barnsley's austerity woes, of things just disappearing off the edge. And one of the only organisations that helped support towns and run initiatives, in this during that time was the EU. And it's a sad thing to say, but I think we are going to be seeing councils go bankrupt. We've already seen a couple very skirting the edge of bankruptcy, and we've seen one go a couple of years ago that was a Tory council who went heavily into austerity. But again, we and there's no way that the current crop of Tories are going to be doing this, because especially after this, there's going to be an excuse to go, well, we need to go back to austerity. And they will go on to austerity hardcore. But if you think the last 10 years of austerity were bad, they're going to look like days of plenty, considering what the Tories probably have planned. So, several jurisdictions have been taken on and off the list since it was first launched in 2017. However, those linked to EU member states have typically avoided inclusion, and the UK had lobbied to protect its overseas territory from past scrutiny. After the vote, however, any decisions to expand the blacklist would rest with the 27 member states on the EU's Economic and Financial Affairs Council, while also arguing for the inclusion of EU territories such as the Netherlands, Ireland and Malta. MEPs said that after Brexit, that UK territories lacked any layer of protection from inclusion on the blacklist. And this week's vote especially mentioned the conclusion of the Brexit deal, saying that Britain's overseas territories should now be screened for potential inclusion on the list, and that after the Brexit deal was based on mutual values and geared towards common prosperity, which automatically encourages aggressive tax competition. Robert Palmer, the director for the Tax Justice UK campaign group, said, "Post-Brexit, the UK tax havens have lost their protector within the corridors of Brussels, and I expect to see the EU ramp up pressure on the places like Jersey to clean up their act." The UK itself has been warned that if the government tries a Singapore-on-Thames approach with a bonfire of regulations and taxes, then the EU will act swiftly. The push to expand the blacklist comes amid criticisms from MEPs that the current version excludes many locations widely regarded as tax havens, including the Cayman Islands and the British Sea's overseas territories, which was included on the blacklist in early February of last year, but was later removed. Debating the vote on Wednesday, Spanish Conservative MEP Jose Manuel Garcia Malguero attacked the post-Brexit status of Gibraltar. who would set up in a European territory if they can set up in Gibraltar and not pay tax and have access to the European Union. We were concerned about the UK becoming a Singapore on our borders, so we should accept a tax on the should we accept a tax haven on our borders at Gibraltar. And scrutiny of the UK tax agreements is rising amid concerns on the continent that Boris Johnson's government could dramatically reshape the regime to give Britain a more competitive advantage outside of the EU. It also comes as government borrowing balloons in countries around the world due to the COVID-19 pandemic, putting pressure on nations to raise more from taxes to repay their battered public finances. And UK overseas territories have also come under the microscope after the allegations of widespread political corruption, misuse of taxpayers' money, and the climate of fear that led to the governor of the British Virgin Islands to establish an independent judge-led inquiry into the claims. So, yeah, about time. I genuinely hope that they do take action, but this is something that within the UK we are going to have to worry about, because the idea of us becoming a Singapore on the Thames, a low tax, low regulation country, which is what many of these free market Tory fundamentalists have the idea of their picture of the UK becoming, is not what people voted for. You know, people do want corporations to be regulated. They do not want them to pay next to no tax. You know, we've said it before on this channel, the justification for Brexit and the quote, the will of the people will be used to try and get rid of so many of the protections that we've so taken for granted in this country for so long. And it is going to be used as an axe against the poor of this country. Because I'll tell you now, when the bill comes due for the COVID-19 pandemic, it won't be the rich who are asked to pick up the bill. So, as always, thanks for watching. Please do hit that like and share button on your way out. And of course, down below there is links to my Patreon page and a One Off Nation link. And thank you, as always, very much for watching. And we'll see you all next time.